meeting is called to order. Please call the roll.
Mr. Buckner.
Here.
Reverend Campbell.
Here.
Mr. Gilstrap.
Here.
Mr. Jones.
Here.
Vice Mayor Miller. Here. Mr. Raleigh.
Here.
Mayor Saunders.
Here.
Mr. Shanks.
Here.
Mr. Vogler.
Here.
Please stand for the invocation. Remain standing for the pledge. Given by Councilmember Larry Campbell.
We all bow our heads. Father, we thank you, Lord, for this day that thou hast made and allowed us to be partakers of. We thank you for this great city of Danville, employees that work so efficiently to serve the people of the city. We pray for your wisdom and knowledge as we shall move forward, that we can make the right decisions that will affect the people of this community. In your name we pray, amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell. I do have a proclamation to present, and I would like to ask Ms. Mildred Richardson, Chair of the College Bonanza, and any board members present with her to please join us down front. And the proclamation reads, whereas students, parents, teachers, and community leaders who are aware of the importance of early preparation for college have established College Bonanza, which will assist 9th to 12th grade students and parents with making decisions regarding college and career path. And whereas College Bonanza will sponsor an open forum led by career coach and author Dr. Lisa M. Banks in an attempt to engage and motivate 9th to 12th grade students and parents from the Danville City, Pittsylvania County, and Caswell County school systems to help with college preparation. And whereas College Bonanza will provide one-on-one speed mentoring for students to ask and receive information to guide them toward a positive transition from high school to college. And whereas College Bonanza will engage students and parents in informational sessions on college applications, scholarships, financial literacy, decision-making, stress management, test preparation, and adjusting to college. And whereas College Bonanza will provide students and parents the opportunity to communicate and receive information from representatives of various Virginia and North Carolina colleges and technical schools, and participate in college campus visits throughout the school year. And whereas College Bonanza will promote a newfound excitement for learning and educational success for 9th to 12th grade students and parents in the Dan River region. Now, therefore, I, Sherman M. Saunders, Mayor, City of Danville, do hereby proclaim Saturday, August 8, 2015, as College Bonanza Day, and encourage students and parents to participate in this event to be held at the Violet T. Frith Fine Arts Center at Averett University from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., given under my hand the 21st day of July 2015, Sherman M. Saunders. Congratulations, and thank you for all that you do, especially for our young people and adults. We'd love to have some remarks, okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Saunders. As the chair of College Bonanza Committee, which consists of Dolores Cruz, Marilyn Colbert, Alexis Earhart, Councilman John Gilstrap, Councilman Alonzo Jones, John Ludeman, Brian Price, and Tammy Wright Warren, I am very proud to accept this proclamation. We are extremely excited and would like to thank you, Danville Regional Foundation, Averett University, and several local businesses for supporting College Bonanza. What a way to kick off the new school year. As read earlier, we invite all 9th through 12th grade students and their parents of the Dan River region to College Bonanza on August 8th from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. There's lots planned with a plethora of information to be shared from college reps. Lunch will be provided and several surprises will be given away throughout the day. For more information, feel free to contact us at collegebonanza2015@gmail.com. Also, we have several banners throughout the city for advertisement if you want to look at those as well. Please invite those parents and students to attend on that day. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and please introduce your guests with you.
This is Alexis Earhart, this is Dolores Cruz, and Marilyn Colbert.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Gilstrap.
And it's absolutely free.
Yes, all is free. Everything's free.
And Mr. Jones.
Just want to thank everyone who we've been receiving a lot of calls from our community, from parents, from students already. They've seen the banners, and once again, as Mr. Gilstrap stated, everything is free. Just want to remind everybody again of that date, August the 8th at 10 a.m. at Avery University Frith Fine Arts Center. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell.
Thank you for your work and what you're doing is so important. And I'd hope that the citizens of Danville really engage in this process to assist our young people moving forward. And I just appreciate every effort that you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you.
Again, we thank Mr. Vogler.
Oh, I just wanted to also say thank you all for being here tonight. Thank you for everything you do. And Ms. Colbert, I don't know if you remember, but well, it's been a little while now, I guess. I had you as a teacher along back in the day, as I
So
say.
it's you to blame. You
Yeah,
you
so,
are to blame.
Yes, no, thank you so much. Thank you all. Thank you.
As a student, did Councilman Vogler stay in your room for more than 2 weeks? Thank you also very much.
Thank you.
Before we call for communication, I want to remind everyone that in January 2015, Council did adopt new procedures governing communication from visitors, and the procedures reads, a representative of a group may have up to 10 uninterrupted minutes to make a presentation. That's for a group. The representative shall identify the group at the beginning of his or her presentation. A group may have no more than one spokesperson. There should be a time limit for each individual speaker of 5 uninterrupted minutes, okay? Anyone wish to speak on any matter that's not on the agenda will be heard at this time. Yes, ma'am. Your name, please?
Good evening.
Good
My
evening.
name's Carolyn Levac-Hound. I live at 144 Hamilton Street here in Danville. I was here 2 weeks ago and listened to and spoke to you on the issue of the removal of the Confederate flag, rather, from public property. There's one statement that reverberated in my head over and over during this last couple of weeks. Reverend Cecil Bridgeforth said, "What's right is right and what's wrong is wrong." And I've even heard that statement quoted back to me by one of your members of City Council. I would first like to be unequivocally clear. I know that there are good people, well-intentioned folks on both sides of this issue. I understand that the individuals who come here in support of Confederate heritage are highly unlikely to be performing acts of hatred, terror, or racism. It's highly unlikely. Unfortunately, what has happened is that this symbol has been appropriated and used for horrific events. And I believe personally that it's time for the Confederate flag to come down from public property. We have heard from no less than Mitt Romney, who stated that this was a symbol of hatred and racism. We got an informal statement from the State Attorney General, who indicated that he felt that it was inappropriate for the Confederate flag to be flying on public property. I go back again to that first statement. What's right is right, what's wrong is wrong. I understand this is a very difficult statement, difficult decision, or a difficult movement, or a difficult thing for you gentlemen to try to do at this time. But I believe that it's the right thing to do. When we know better, we need to act accordingly. I ask that you search your hearts, and I believe that you will come to the conclusion that it is inappropriate and that we need to move expeditiously on this issue. I pray that is the case. As Reverend Bridgeforth said, what's right is right and what's wrong is wrong. It's not always easy to do the right thing, but as gentlemen of conscience, I believe that you can and will do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? Yes, sir. Your name, please.
My name is Reverend William Avon King, resident of the city of Danville. I represent the state unit of Southern Christian Leadership Conference and the Danville Interdenominational Ministry of Alliance. Good evening, Mayor and Council and all you gathered here today. It is a privilege to come before you, but we have continuously and consistently came, and we have in the last meeting with you, we have reached out to our state delegate. We've also reached out to the Attorney General and to other attorneys. And first of all, I would like to say I would hope that the city understand that this issue is not going away. We do not want the Confederate flag displayed, period, on city property. As on the behalf of SCLC, we are a direct action organization. We are trying to work with the city. We are trying to resolve this matter, as the lady stated, with right. First of all, we would like to say we have been told by many that it is a legal question, but all of legal advice puts it back in the hand of this city council. So we want to first of all let you know we would like to see openly what is your position on this flag. Do you stand for a flag of hatred flying in the city of Danville? Do you stand for a flag that was part of the Declaration of Independence, talks about abolishing a government? This United States was fired on in Fort Sumter, and we ask you the question, what is treason? Today, what is treason? That's what we ask you the question. What is terrorism? What are acts of terrorism? This symbol has been adopted by hate groups and groups that have been declared as terrorist organizations. We will also make the next effort we are trying to deal with on the state level. The next effort would be to reach out to the Federal Attorney General. We want the Confederate flag declared as a symbol of hate, similar to the Nazi flag. And we want it to be removed from the state, and not only that, from the United States and being displayed. In the process that you may come to a decision that you can fly this flag and then go in and say that we've made a compromise. We want it on record, SCLC will not compromise with the Confederate flag flying. So we want to make it clear, if you think you cannot move this monument on your own property, and you say that the law say you cannot move it, in the process of time, if this issue goes to court, you need to consider building a wall around this Confederate flag monument. If you want to honor the Confederates, put their name on it, but a wall should be built around it, totally around it, so this flag cannot be displayed in the city of Danville or nowhere in the United States of America. I thank you for your time. I hope that you will consider and make the right decision so that Danville will not become the focal point of a new civil rights movement. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? Anyone else? Yes, ma'am. And your name, please?
Janice Simmerly. I live on Iris Lane, across the road from the city, but I feel like us county folks have a stake in this too. I came to the last meeting, and I have to admit that until then, and talking to a couple friends, that I didn't think much about this flag. It was a sign of the past. It was one of the saddest times that we here in America have ever been through. It divided our country. I hope it's not going to do it again. I mean, it sort of scares me when I think about that. And I've watched some folks, black and white folks. I think everybody's making a little bit extra effort to go up and shake hands or talk to one another, because I think a lot of people have this fear that something's going to come out of this that we don't want to. I never, and I have to apologize, I never heard the flag as something of hate. That had just never occurred to me, and I have to apologize for that. After that night, I went home and I looked up some stuff about the Civil War, about slavery and things like that. I looked back in its history. I always knew there were black slaves. We've been taught that. But in searching, I found that there was as many white slaves brought to America from England, Ireland, some from Wales and Scotland, as there was black. I called a cousin of mine who has done the family tree, and I was asking her, where did our folks come from? She says, I can trace it back so far here in America, but I can't go back any further. I said, wonder if we were one of the families that come over as slaves. We don't know. Since she's pretty good at this, and she's traced a lot of the other side of the family back, but she can't seem to go back any further with us. I'm sorry for what happened. If there was anything that I could do, that most of us could do, we'd go back and change that history. We would make things a whole lot better than it was. This past Sunday in our Sunday school class that I attend, there was an illustration brought up, and it talked about human trafficking. I hadn't thought about that very much. We see a little bit of it on the news every once in a while or on a TV program about human trafficking. This is done today. It goes on all over the world. White, yellow, brown, black, every country in the world. When I pulled it, it showed a way to pull it up on the map around Washington, D.C., lit up like a Christmas tree. There is so much of it that they know is going on up there. Within the United States, there is estimated to be between 300 and 400,000 in the country now. Some is sex slavery, some is domestic slavery. Just like when the blacks were brought over, there was all ages. Babies are being taken, even up to us old folks. There is something that they can put us into doing. Sometimes they go voluntarily because they think it's going to be a better life. It has been misrepresented to them. Slaves that we're talking about were sold around, the average was $1,400. Today, flesh is cheap. Around $90 is what someone is sold for. I can't understand the feelings about the slaves, how black Americans must feel knowing that their ancestors probably come from there. I can understand how the folks here that's ancestors fought in the war and they want that piece of history to stand. I can understand that. But that's in the past. We can't fix it. If we could, we would.
Ma'am, respectfully, we have a 5-minute limit on. Okay, thank you.
If we would put as much emotions, time, energy, and money into the way we talk about slavery and flags today, maybe we could change now and the future for all of us folks, so slavery will always be abolished.
Thank you so much. Anyone else wish to speak? Anyone else? Yes, ma'am. And your name, please.
My name is Sheila Baines, and I reside in the city of Danville. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to you again. I looked at the agenda today before I came. I pulled it up online and took a look at the agenda because I was here at our last meeting, and I know what was discussed. So I was surprised when there were some issues not listed on the agenda for tonight or for the work session. Remembering from the meeting and at looking at the draft report from the minutes from the last meeting, I will remind you of some things that I heard, and I know all of you heard. Councilman Gilstrap, well, there was a resolution, or maybe almost a resolution put on the floor from our city councilman, Larry Campbell, who spoke about the issue of the flag and about some information that he had received regarding some threats to his personal information that may be released if he took a certain stand. And Councilman Member Gilstrap questioned if a resolution was put on the floor, and Mr. Campbell noted that he is asking council to revisit the issue of the Confederate flag removal. City Attorney Clark Whitfield noted that he interpreted that as not necessarily tonight, but that Mr. Campbell wanted something well thought out that would be reviewed by council and by the city attorney's office. Mr. Campbell noted his agreement. I thought quite possibly that there might be some discussion from our council members on this issue tonight. When I saw that it is not on the agenda, I said, well, maybe it will be during work session. It is not listed, and possibly, maybe it will be brought up in work session. I personally would like to have it discussed in the open where people hear what is said and not behind closed doors, which sometimes things are done. But there are some issues that need to be spoken in front of those that you represent so that we know what you're thinking, what you're doing, and just how you feel about the issue, about issues that come up. In today's newspaper, you learn that our Attorney General was in Danville, and he had the opportunity to meet with citizens in Danville who also raised the issue of the flag. And I found his comments interesting and refreshing. I actually was one of those people he spoke with. I was at an event that he was at and talked to him about this issue. And he was very open in his remarks that he made. And I appreciate that. And I see that when the press was around, he was still very open about the remarks that he made. It's quoted in the paper as Herring said he understood why the Confederate flag is a symbol of oppression for some people. The flag does not belong in public places, on public property, he said. He added, the flag should come down. He said that he hoped the Attorney General's office would have more to say about the issue in the future. I as well hope the Attorney General's office will have more to say about this issue in the city. But what's most telling in this is that he said ultimately it is a decision for the city council to make. I too agree. Ultimately, it is your decision to make. And I know that you have been encouraged to make a decision and to take some action on it. I know that you've also been asked to let citizens know how you feel about the issue. So that brings me to my next topic.
Now, ma'am, we do have a 5-minute limit.
Okay, I'm going to try to hurry right through this. Okay, we know, based on reports, that Councilman Saunders, Councilman Miller, Councilman Campbell, and Councilman Jones have all stated that they support taking the flag down. Councilman Shanks, Councilman Buckner, Councilman Vogler, and Councilman Raleigh, well, I haven't heard them say how they feel about the flag issue.
Excuse me, ma'am, are you close? Are you close to ending?
I'm close.
You have a 5-minute limit.
They don't talk about that issue. They talk about other issues. We have one person on the fence. That person is Councilman Gilstrap, or at least it's reported that you're on the fence. John, if you're on the fence, it's time to come off of it.
Ms. Bain, I'm sorry, the time.
One last thing, can I say one last closing remark? When we've heard people talk about heritage, but remember the heritage, not just from 1861 to 1865, 4 years that the flag flew, but think about the heritage for the time period after that, for the
Mrs. Bain,
150 years,
thank you.
where it was wrapped
Thank
in
you.
hate and
Thank you so
distrust
much.
to the public. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? Yes, sir. Your name, sir?
John Towns.
Okay.
Fellow councilman, honorable mayor, friends, neighbors, and fellow citizens. I speak to you concerning an issue that concerns me, concerning the flag. It is not so much the flag, but an issue that has come because, I believe, of the flag. And I've heard that there have been threats against our fellow brothers' life who would speak against it. Now, we today are going national, and we hear it all the time, with terrorist threats. These are dangers to the lives and the welfare of our fellow citizens, our Americans. And tonight, I ask the councilmen, I ask my brothers and sisters, my neighbors, to please consider that each and every one of us have a life. We have a family. And each thing that comes that is not conducive to the welfare and the liberty and the right to speak concerning one's opinion. And let me add that we all have the right and are commanded to make wise judgments. So I give to you, fellow councilmen, honorable mayor, brothers and sisters, let us make wise judgments concerning the welfare of our cities, of our communities, of our young people, of our wives, and our loved ones, far and near. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? Yes, sir. Okay, your name, please.
Scott McKenzie.
Okay.
To the most holy and divine God, honorable mayor, city council members, and to the citizens of Danville, Virginia. I greet you in the way of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Good afternoon. Yesterday I was in a meeting and we heard from the city attorney as well as Delegate Marshall. And in that statement, he started with the statement that the city of Danville is an independent city. And then he goes and hands us state law. Well, the question would be, if the city of Danville is an independent city, what law governs the city? The state law does not matter, considering it's trust law that governs the city of Danville, or in layman's term, contract law. So the issue is between the contract between the city of Danville and the American Heritage Society. And looking at the contract, you both can come to the agreement to move the monument. And the state law has nothing to do with it. As the Bible says clearly, how can two walk together except they agree? So I would ask you to let's deal with this honestly. You're under trust law, you're under contract law. Deal with the contract in which you have already entered into. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Your name, please.
My name is John Bryant. To be honest with you, I don't find the flag to be of racism. Neither do my friends that fly the flag. We don't use it for that, and I know it's been misconstrued in many ways, shapes, and forms. But honestly, the first black slave owner in America, the first slave owner in America was a black man. And he went to court and demanded it. His name was Anthony Johnson, a black man who took a white man named Robert Pankert to court in 1654 to sue for ownership of John Casson in 1655. And it was nulled for Anthony Johnson. The court, it said that he was able to own the slaves, and this was the first black slave owner. But to be honest with you, all races have dealt with slavery. All races, period. And we're not racist because we fly the flag by any means at all. And I hope people understand that just because we want to fly the flag doesn't mean we're racist. It's preservation of heritage. That's all it is. And we mean no harm by flying our flags. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? Anyone else? Yes, sir. Your name, please.
Cecil Bridgeforth, resident of Danville since 1976. Honorable Mayor, Council, and those who are viewing. I came to Danville to pastor a church, and I was always encouraged that whenever property became available around the church, buy it. Because the more land you possess, the more control you have of the community. I read with interest in the newspaper the other day where 4 councilmen wanted to sell the Southern Mansions. Now, it's a museum, and it can't benefit the city if it is promoted properly. I've always pondered that you have a museum that reflects history, but yet is not promoted. But then the flag goes up, and when the flag goes up, red flags began to fly as well because it represented a division in the city. The flag comes down, you keep the mansion, and if it is a museum, then with proper promotion, like other areas who have built Confederate museums and they are doing well with them, why not we profit from that? Because you know what the flags represent. Even though you take the flag down, it does not take away from your heritage. And matter of fact, you take the flag down, you still have a racist, you still have a bigot, you have those who discriminate. Don't make no difference. But in order for the city to be one and not bring in national attention, you keep the museum and let the board promote the museum, because you're already doing it every year. You bring in, you reenact, and you bring the school kids in to be a part of it. So it's a win-win situation. Keep the museum. You say you're going to save $100,000. Well, you can make more than that if you promote it properly. And so I don't agree in selling the Southern Mansions. It's a part of history in the city. And why do you sell history? If you want people to learn and to know your heritage, then it's a good place to start. And all of us know we have a black past. Matter of fact, individually, we all have a black past. But the question is, are you going to let your past keep you from going forward? And so I just thought I would raise that issue of not selling the mansion, but take the flag, put it where it's supposed to be for a museum, and promote it. Promote the history and make sure it encompasses everything. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone else? Yes. Yes, sir.
Glenn Scarce.
Okay, thank you.
For the record, Confederate soldiers, sailors, Marines that fought for the Civil War were made U.S. veterans by an act of Congress in 1957. U.S. Public Law 85-425, Section 410, approved in May 1958. This made all Confederate Army, Navy, Marine veterans equal to U.S. veterans. Additionally, under public law approved in Congress in 1929, the War Department directed to erect headstones in recognition of Confederate grave sites in the U.S. on all war grave sites. The last Confederate veteran died in 1958. So in essence, when you remove a Confederate statue, monument, headstone, you are in fact removing a monument, statue, or headstone of a United States veteran. I really don't want to get personal, but the venom that one person loves to spew in this arena has really gotten my goat. I haven't used up 5 minutes yet. There are so many things this town has to deal with and should be dealing with, and so many questions I have of how the city government is being run, that it reminds me of the guy that loves to yell squirrel to his dog just to watch the dog run around in a circle trying to find the imaginary squirrel. I wonder if maybe this issue is part of something like that that takes us away from things that we should be talking about and should be dealing with. There are some people who seem to revel in causing problems and stirring up animosity among people. I understand their reasonings and I know who they are and why they do what they do, but they are not to be emulated. They are not to be held up as good citizens nor any type of icon for people to follow. The Southern people have lived together for a long, long time, and they've endured a lot of hardships together for a long, long time. There's no problem they can't solve together. But if I hear remarks like I heard at the beginning of this session tonight any longer, I'm going to have to start speaking out a lot more forcibly than I have in the past on subjects of who's the real racist. Now, I had a lot of issues here I wanted to talk about tonight, and this certainly wasn't one of them. But enough is enough. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? Anyone else? Close the communication period. Is there a motion to approve our minutes of June 16, 2015? Mr. Buckner, the second. Mr. Jones, discussion of the motion? Please call the roll.
Aye.
Mr. Gilstrap.
Aye.
Mr. Jones.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Miller.
Aye.
Mr. Rowley.
Aye.
Mayor Saunders.
Aye.
Mr. Shanks.
Aye.
Mr. Vogler.
Consideration of adopting an ordinance granting a special use permit for gasoline sales on North End Drive. I open the public hearing. Anyone wish to speak? Anyone wish to speak? Close the public hearing. Council's pleasure. Mr. Vogler.
Mr. Mayor, I move we adopt an ordinance granting a special use permit to allow the operation of gasoline sales establishment in accordance with Article 3 in Section C, Item 7 of the Code of the City of Danville, Virginia, 1986, as amended at 211 Nordan Drive.
Second, Mr. Jones. Discussion on the motion. Please call the roll.
Reverend Campbell. Mr. Gilstrap.
Aye.
Mr. Jones.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Miller.
Aye.
Mr. Rowley.
Aye.
Mayor Saunders.
Aye.
Mr. Shanks.
Aye.
Mr. Vogler.
Aye.
Mr. Buckner.
Consideration of adopting an ordinance granting a special use permit for the ice manufacturing on Newton Street. Open the public hearing. Anyone wish to comment? Anyone wish to comment? Close the public hearing. Mr. Buckner.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve an ordinance granting special use permit to allow manufacturing of ice in accordance with Article 3K, Section C, Item 26 of the Code of Danville, the City of Danville, Virginia, 1986, as amended at 633 Newton Street.
Second, Mr. Campbell. Discussion on the motion. Please call the roll.
Mr. Gilstrap.
Aye.
Mr. Jones.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Miller. Mr. Rowley.
Aye.
Mayor Saunders.
Aye.
Mr. Shanks.
Aye.
Mr. Vogler.
Aye.
Mr. Buckner.
Aye.
Reverend Campbell.
Aye.
Consideration of adopting an ordinance to amend Chapter 41 of the Code of the City of Danville, Virginia. Open the public hearing. Anyone wish to speak? Anyone wish to speak? Close the public hearing. Mr. Gilstrap.
Mr. Mayor, I move adoption of an ordinance amending Chapter 41 entitled Zoning Ordinance of the Code of the City of Danville, Virginia, 1986, as amended. More specifically, Article 15 entitled Definitions, Section B entitled Definitions, to amend the definition of agricultural car wash and create new definitions if needed. Article 3E entitled Old Town Residential District, Section C entitled Uses Permitted by Special Use Permit, to allow for agriculture and other articles and sections of the code if needed to address urban farming.
A second, Mr. Vogler. Discussion on the motion. Mr. Vice Mayor.
I invited Ken Gill here tonight because I honestly wasn't sure exactly how we were changing the previous thing, and I've handed out these comments from Jamie Stowe, the Agricultural Extension Agent, on recommended acreages per cow, 3 to 5, horses 2 to 3, sheep and goats, and chicken houses. So you have those at your thing. But I just wanted for clarification how we were changing this, because to me, a form, as it stated, one form of an animal means a cow or a horse or a pig, a form.
Of course, of course.
But apparently that means a life form. In other words, one cow or one horse or one pig. So explain it to you what we're changing, please.
We're creating a definition right now for urban agriculture. We don't have that in the code. The only thing we have is agriculture is only allowed in certain districts. So we're creating an additional definition that will allow not expansion of the operation, but the operation to occur at different spots. Is going through that, the agriculture was designed really for the areas of the city that were remnants of the 88 annexation, mostly along out off of Westover, the large farm tracts, still some of the area in the southern portion of the city that are larger lots. We've had requests for smaller, I don't want to say hobby farms, but on much smaller tracts. We tried to create a definition that would deal with those. We were planning on having the definition deal with just one animal itself so that we didn't overload the size of the lot, especially on the urban areas, because you could have maybe a 1 acre, acre and a half lot, possibly at the edge of a residential district. So we were trying to limit the number of animals that could go there. We also did it through a special use permit process, which requires them to apply to Planning Commission and City Council, so we could work with whoever the applicant is and set conditions on the type of animals, the structures, or anything else that goes along with it. We're well aware of what the Extension Service says for the number of animals, and that's why our determination was that if you had one per every 3 acres, it was one cow. It wasn't that you had one cow, one goat, one chicken, because the cow requires 3 acres just to sustain itself. That wouldn't leave enough for the other animals.
And at Grove Park, where there's multiple cows right
Correct.
now,
we do have areas that were already used for that type of production prior to annexation in '88. And again, that's why I said the area out of Westover. We do have some in the southern portion of the city. As Councilman Miller said, off of the old South Main Street, Grove Park area. We have some out off of Holland Road. We have some off of Elizabeth Street extension. So there are a few areas that were in operation prior to, and those are legal non-conforming. This won't impact them. This will only impact if someone comes in and wants to do this operation on a new piece of property, depending on what the zoning is. That way they'll have different definitions on what they have to follow. They will still have to go through that special use permit process. Neighbors will be notified, and it will come here to City Council for approval or denial.
So they were grandfathered in?
They are grandfathered in.
So the limit then, if you'd have to have a 3-acre plot to have one cow. Right now, 2 acre wouldn't get it.
2 acres wouldn't get it.
You could have 5 chickens?
You could have a number of chickens divided by the number of the lot size you'd have. It's 5 chickens per 3 acres. So if you have an acre lot, we would divide it and then round down to say what is necessary for that.
And if somebody wanted something larger, they'd have to get a permit. They couldn't just put a farm up or a livestock bin and house 20 cattle and feed them. They wouldn't be dependent on the land. They just depended on the person feeding, but they couldn't do that.
They couldn't do that because, one, it requires a special use permit, so they'd have to come through Planning Commission, City Council. 2, we also know where all the existing facilities are that were in operation as of '88. So anything new, we can track and say, this wasn't here before. You're required to follow these rules, and then we can go out and count chickens, pigs, cattle if necessary. And we have had to do that a few times here.
So why do people want this? Somebody wants to say keep a horse on their land. Is that what a single horse, or why are we doing this?
Actually, we've had a request for an urban farm, but they want to raise vegetables and other things, and put them out, and that's not permitted in the district that they're in. They're in a single family and Old Town residential district. So in order to accommodate that, we're looking at possibly changing it. And this has become, as we've followed, and I think you may have heard through the extension agent, this is becoming more popular with people. They want to get back to nature per se, but they're not looking at going out and buying large farms. So we have small areas that people are looking at getting vacant lots in neighborhoods and other things and converting them into this, almost doing farm share type programs. So it's the way to help facilitate that. We thought this would be a
So
good
we're
way.
facilitating that for people to grow crops, but limiting the amount of livestock if they do such things.
That's our plan. Livestock usually has issues associated with noise, with smells and other things that the crops themselves don't have. The crops can with some of the fertilizers. And again, that's why we're trying to do it through a special use permit process so we can work with the applicants on what they put down on their sites.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. James.
I have a couple of questions. Well, one question in particular, well, one concern in particular. Let me get the question first. Off of Westover and off of some of the roads in South Danville, there are 25, 50 acre tracts of land that people own.
Correct.
Are you saying that they own this property and they're not currently using it for agricultural purposes, but they can't ever use it for agricultural purposes without getting a special use permit?
No, I'm not saying they can't ever. A lot of the property off of Westover that are large acreage tracts could be actually in the Sandy River Residential District. And if you remember, the Sandy River Residential District was created specifically to address those areas that either had farming or had the ability to have that. So there are places that this is already permitted and agriculture is allowed. It's the areas that didn't have it in the past that are maybe those smaller lots. And you'll notice we're changing the areas within, such as the Old Town Residential District, the Threshold Residential, some of the kind of transitional residential lots. This gives an option that they didn't have before. The Westover area is mostly against Sandy River, and those are active farms, or they could meet it under the existing code.
Okay, so you're changing the definition of agriculture.
Correct.
So it seems to me if you change the definition of agriculture to this definition, it would also include the definition of agriculture that you would use in the Sandy River District. Is that true or not?
That is true. The definition of agriculture that we're changing, the only thing we're doing is adding the lots over 2 acres and striking out the portion that says, or lands devoted to soil conservation or forestry management purposes. The definition that's already in place is our definition of agriculture. That's being modified. The only reason it's being modified is because we're creating a definition of urban agriculture, and we didn't want to create a conflict between the two definitions.
All right, that brings me to my real concern. urban agriculture, quote, the production, keeping, or maintenance for sale, lease, or personal use on lots of less than 2 acres of plants. Are you saying that a person can't have a garden in his backyard?
No, I'm not saying a person cannot have a garden in his
Well,
backyard.
it's saying it right here. Help me understand why that's not what it says.
Because I used the agriculture definition and just modified it slightly since that was already in the books. I wanted to keep them similar. Should we have taken that out of both definitions? I hadn't thought about it until just now.
I think under this law code that my garden right now will become illegal.
In mine.
Since that was the definition already in the books, I hadn't considered that part.
I think it's important that that be changed. I garden an awful lot. 400 square feet is, it's not huge, but that's every year, 500 square feet. I have no intentions of giving that right up.
It was never our intention to take that right from you, sir. It wasn't.
So do we need to go back to the drawing board on language before we vote on this?
Can we amend it now?
I would rather it be corrected and come back instead of doing something halfway and not catch everything at the time.
Thank you. Mr. Vice Mayor?
No, I'm good. I'll make a motion to table.
Mr. Gilstrap and then Mr. Vogler.
Actually, I need clarification. If it's an existing definition, why would the backyard garden not fall under the same definition? I'm not sure if they would need a special use permit presently or future if it's the old definition.
They did not need a special use permit. We considered backyard gardens just an accessory use that people had. It's, somebody just growing some tomatoes and other things and passing out.
But changing the definition wouldn't affect that.
Changing, in my opinion, no, it would not. As zoning administrator, I'm not going to go after someone who's got a backyard garden and is growing their tomatoes and giving them to their neighbors. As Councilman Shank said, I did not consider that because the personal use, in my mind, that was our definition. It was already there. If you're willing, I'd hate to see you table it because we have a group that is planning on doing this and they're trying with their timing to meet fall planting season and everything else. But that was not our intention. We can go back, we can remove that section, or better word, remove the personal use portion. Honestly, I hadn't thought about that.
My second point is exactly what you were saying, is that I would not want to put this off. I would like, and I would suggest that we voted tonight, one way or the other, and that we address any changes we want to make to it later, so that we do not delay any projects in process.
Mr. Vogler.
Well, I had planned to suggest that we table, but upon hearing that, I think, if it's able, we vote it tonight, and then if there are adjustments we need to make, we'll obviously know that there's probably some cleaning up of the language, but we've already got someone that this would fall under. I don't want to hamper their ability to do so. So I don't have a motion to table.
Okay, Mr. Jones?
So you're saying we don't need to amend anything, just vote on it as is and then later come back and do the amendments?
Well, that's your decision on what you vote on. I'm not suggesting one way or another. We do have someone who's looking to do an urban garden per se. And we've worked with them on trying to, and that's one of the reasons that spawned us to do this change. If it gets tabled, that's going to extend them out probably 60, 90 days, and they've got their special use permit application ready to be turned in. That will make them miss the fall planting season that they've got. They've got some trees and other things that they want to do. So if it's council's pleasure, I would hope that you wouldn't table it and let us just come back and do a little more tweaking of that language. Again, I hadn't considered the personal use portion. It didn't click with me until you just said about your backyard garden. And I apologize, I should have caught that. I did not.
Thank you.
Okay, we do have a motion and properly second, and we are now in discussion. Ms. Shanks.
May I offer a substitute motion?
Okay.
I move that we adopt the proposed ordinance with the following modification. Under urban agriculture, it would read as follows: the production, keeping, or maintenance for sale or lease on lots or portions of lots under 2 acres. That would eliminate the word "or personal use" from the language. and that would allow the motion to go forward, the code change to go forward and keep those folks on schedule. If there are further changes, then they can be made. But if we pass it as written tonight, at least 2 council members will be illegal tomorrow.
I second.
Okay, motion on the floor, properly second. Discussion on the substitute motion.
Can I make sure you're speaking specifically under the urban agriculture, Mr. Shanks?
I think I would say my motion was urban agriculture. I think that language under agriculture might be considered when Kim goes back, and maybe that needs changed.
So your motion was both in the current definition and of agriculture and the new definition of urban agriculture.
I would like that to be in my motion.
I just wanted to make sure. That's what I thought. That's what I understood.
Further discussion? Mr. Gilstrap.
On the substitute motion, do we, I'm not sure why we can't wait on the substitute motion or changing it, Mr. Shank. But I would feel, do we want to give our city attorney and our planning staff and commission a chance to reword what you're speaking of? Can we not approve the original motion as is and then address changes? And to your point, the backyard gardens would be unlawful, but we just heard that's not considered unlawful by the planning commission. So. And they're the ones that would be enforcing it. So I think between now and next spring, when the backyard gardens start again, would give us plenty of time to properly get it on the books as we feel it should.
Ms. James.
The reason why we shouldn't do what you're suggesting is I intend to plant my fall garden in the next couple of weeks. I will be illegal, and so will Dr. Miller, if we don't make this change or table tonight. Mr. Gilly gets a phone call tomorrow or day after tomorrow from my neighbor who doesn't like my garden. He has to enforce the code. That's what the code says.
But explain to me the difference between presently you can do that and if this is passed, you cannot. I do not see a different interpretation of what you're saying from what is presently on the books and what they're proposing. They're only opening up an avenue for neighborhoods to help themselves.
Ms. Shanks.
Yeah, my only response is why not make this simple change that will keep Dr. Miller and myself legally having a garden. Why not make this change? I mean, if we're not going to make a change, I would certainly vote to table. I'm trying to be helpful.
Okay, we have a substitute motion on the floor, properly second. We vote on that first, right, Mr.
Yes, sir.
Attorney?
We vote on the substituted language first, and then if that passes, we vote on the motion as with the substituted language. Yes, sir.
Everyone understand the substitute motion?
I have a question.
Mr.
Gilstrap. Will that affect the project that you were speaking about that has a special use permit ready to go? Will the new language affect that in any way?
No, it will not affect it in any way.
So if we vote on the substitute motion, they may proceed with their garden.
They may proceed.
Okay.
Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Jones?
I knew that my name was going to be first, Mr. Mayor. Just for clarity, we are voting on the substitute motion by Mr. Shanks.
Correct. Yes, the substituted
Aye.
language.
Correct.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Miller?
Aye.
Mr. Raleigh?
Aye.
Mayor Saunders?
Aye.
Mr. Shanks?
Aye.
Mr. Vogler?
Aye.
Mr. Buckner?
Aye.
Reverend Campbell?
Aye.
Mr. Gilstrap?
Aye.
And the original motion, Mr. Chairman? Go through that as well?
Yes, sir. And now the original motion has substituted language as Mr. Shanks' motion passed, so we would vote on the motion as
Please call the
substituted.
roll.
Vice Mayor Miller?
Aye.
Mr. Raleigh?
Aye.
Mayor Saunders?
Aye.
Mr. Shanks?
Aye.
Mr. Vogler?
Aye.
Mr. Buckner?
Aye.
Reverend Campbell? Mr. Gilstrap?
Aye.
Mr. Jones?
Aye.
Consideration of adopting an ordinance to appropriate funds for a National Recreation and Park Association grant award. Council, your pleasure. Mr. Raleigh.
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt an ordinance amending the fiscal year 2016 budget appropriation ordinance to provide for a National Recreation and Parks Association grant award in the amount of $26,050 and appropriation of a same. First reading.
Is there a second? Ms. Gilstrap. Discussion on the motion? First reading, consideration of adopting an ordinance for budget appropriation for Virginia Tech Subrecipient Grant Award. Council, your pleasure. Mr. Campbell.
Mr. Mayor, I move for an ordinance adopting amending the fiscal year 2016 budget appropriating ordinance to provide for a Virginia Tech Subrecipient Grant Award in amount of $42,821 and appropriating of the same. First reading.
Second, Mr. Buckner. Discussion on the motion. First reading, consideration of adopting an ordinance regarding Virginia Department of Transportation fiscal year 2016 revenue sharing program. Mr. Vogler.
Mr. Mayor, I move we adopt an ordinance amending the fiscal year 2016 budget appropriation ordinance for projects to be undertaken within the city and to be financed anticipating revenues from Virginia Department of Transportation revenue sharing program funds in the amount of $1,075,000. First reading.
Is there a second? Mr. Raleigh. Discussion on the motion. Okay, first reading. Communication. Mr. Larkin. Okay, Mr. Whitfield.
Nothing this evening, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Madam Clerk.
Nothing, sir.
Okay, please call the roll.
Mr. Buckner?
Yeah, first of all, I'd like to just thank everybody for being here tonight on both sides. We really appreciate all your input, and of course, we'll make the decisions that we're faced with. I'd like to give a shout out to Danville by Choice. If you hadn't heard of this organization, they're doing a really good job here in the area. Look them up on Facebook. Mr. Hedrick has the T-shirt here. He was the winner. And also, a few weeks ago in the Register and Bee, there was a letter, or there was a story written about the flags that were down on Memorial Drive, and they listed a lot of different things that the flags represented. But I got a few calls from some guys in our public service field, the police department, retired and serving. Were not recognized for that. Those flags were also there and representing those guys too. And that's all for tonight. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Yes, I just want to thank all of the citizens who expressed themselves tonight. First of all, I'd like to say that I love the city greatly, the accomplishments and where we are going, and some of the decisions that we made. Everybody's not going to be happy at all. It is very disturbing to me about what's in reference to the Confederate flag, and personally, I have expressed myself in the past, and I hope that council will address it as soon as possible, and that we can move forward on this issue. The citizens are asking for us to make a decision, and we need to do something quickly as soon as possible. I'd like to remind the citizens that next month will be National Night Out, first Tuesday, and we're looking forward to going around as we did on last year. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Gilstrap?
I neglected to remind everyone that next month's meeting will be, the first meeting of the month will be on Thursday. Thank you, Councilman Campbell.
August 6th.
Thursday, August the 6th, rather than Tuesday, August the 4th, since that is National Night Out, and excuse me for that.
Thank you.
Mr. Gilstrap?
Yes, thank everyone for coming. Dudley Do-Right's here. Good to see you, Dudley. Let me just say that I'm very proud to be on the board of College Bonanza, and I know how hard they have worked and are working, and I know it's going to be a very exciting day in Danville, and I know that they're going to do a lot of good for the youth of our community. And when you say Danville area, that includes Danville, Pittsylvania County, and Caswell County, I understand. And I'm sure you won't turn anyone down. But also, I believe we're going to be, anyone needs transportation assistance, we will have the ability to assist them if they do. Again, Mayor, thank everybody.
Thank you.
Mr. Jones?
Mr. Mayor, when I ran for city council, I never forget getting a phone call from Miss Ruby Archie and to her family. And Miss Archie told me on the phone, we talked for about 2.5 hours that Saturday night. And she said, Alonzo, I want you to do 2 things for me. She said, I want you to first listen to all the citizens. She said, just listen to all the citizens. And the second thing she wanted me to do, she said, just follow your heart. And last week, 2 weeks ago, when we finished the council meeting, I stated my opinion in regards to the Confederate flag and the history that's behind it and it being placed inside the museum. I thought more about it, and I thought about Miss Archie, when Mr. Vogler, we're going to have petitions real soon to try to rename the public library after Miss Archie. And I sat at home and I thought about this, and there was something that came to my mind. There was a person who came to me after the council meeting, and he said to me, he said, Mr. Jones, and he's here today, and he said, and you really touched me by what you said. You said, Mr. Jones, we may not agree on everything, but we respect each other. And I just want to thank you for that. I really want to thank you for that, because one of the things that is happening in our community with the College Bonanza and with so many other things going on in Danville, Danville is moving forward. I listened to both sides tonight, and I heard both sides speak and the respect that everyone had for one another. I agree with Councilman Campbell. I'm ready to resolve this matter as quick as we possibly can so we can continue moving our city forward. The College Bonanza, when we talk about young people, we talk about this event on August the 8th, and we talk about the number of young people who are watching and who are listening to us. I think we all have been through it. I know personally, they talked about Ms. Richardson and her founding this, but I think she's heard me and she's listened to me, and we both have really been hurt by so much negativity that's across the country. But I hope in Danville, and I know the words that I'm probably saying, Mr. Mayor, probably don't mean anything, but I do know this, that this is a great council. The members of council work together, and I believe, and I really sincerely hope very soon that we can come together and resolve this matter for the betterment of the city. And I would say to those who are in favor of the Confederate flag, history should be there. I think people should walk into our museum, and I would pray and hope that our young people, as it was stated earlier, will go inside our museum and with the flag inside them and understand and study and look at the history of not just one part of our community, all of our community. And I close with this, Mr. Mayor. I asked myself when I stood in front of the museum the other day, I wonder how many young people actually pay attention to the flag outside the museum, but would pay more attention to the flag inside the museum. I ask that we continue to love one another. This has really been heartfelt. I have been through a lot on this issue. I have stood by it, and Mr. Mayor, I want to thank you for what you said. You said we're going to agree to disagree. And I thank you for that, and I thank you for your encouragement through me through all of this. I've never been through anything like this on both sides. And I close and I say that I do love you all on both sides. I do love the city of Danville. And Mr. Mayor, we will continue moving forward. Again, the College Bonanza is on August the 8th. And we want to thank from the entire board, from the College Bonanza Committee. We want to thank you all for all the calls we're getting. That's August the 8th at 10 a.m. If you want to contact us, it's collegebonanza2015@gmail.com. And I'm sure on behalf of Mr. Rawl and myself and Dr. Franks and all of Avery, we welcome you all to Avery University. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor Miller.
I certainly appreciate the comments from the public. You always learn something, and you know, Mr. Scarce pointed out that the Confederate soldiers were made Union soldiers. They actually got pensions from the U.S. government several years later. They were pensioned by the U.S. government, even though they fought against the U.S. government. So you learn things. Now, you've heard my people quoted me on the flag, and I would like for it to come down, be put in the museum to enhance the display there. But I think some guarantee might be made that it wouldn't disappear 6 months later and go into the basement, and I think that's a fear of people who want their heritage displayed. So I think we might have to look at that. But that would be something the museum could agree to. Having said that about the flag, I've been dismayed by the movement around the country to tear down monuments to soldiers of the Confederacy. When I'm in Danville, Pennsylvania, where my son lives, there's a nice monument to all the Union soldiers who died. It's a beautiful monument. There are no Confederate monuments up there. So if we tear down all the Confederate monuments, like in Portsmouth, the sailors, and we take all the monuments off Monument Avenue in Richmond, well, you know, are we only going to have monuments to the, quote, winners? A lot of people were opposed to the Vietnamese War
Do we not wish to honor those soldiers who went and fought with the monument? Do we tear that down because people are opposed? People were opposed to the Iraqi war. I personally didn't think we should have fought that war, but I honor the soldiers who went and fought there, and they should have monuments. So to say only the winners should have monuments, I think is incorrect. So we should leave our monuments up. And Monument Avenue in Richmond, we should add more monuments to other races and equalize things out. So, to the flag, I think that has been appropriated, unfortunately, by certain groups as a symbol of hate, and I think that's why it needs to come down. But we shouldn't rush to tear down every monument to the Confederacy just because they didn't win the war. A lot of wars were unpopular, and we have monuments, and we should leave those up as well. To a more pleasant subject, the National Night Out always brings gleam to the eyes of the council. That's one of our favorite nights of the year. We get out to meet everybody, the public, and we're looking forward to that. And get in your neighborhood with your group, and we'll come by and see you, and we'll have a good time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Rowley?
Nothing tonight.
Mr. Shanks?
And all the correspondence that has been forwarded to us over the last several weeks, and then again back in last November and December. I'm deeply saddened that we're going through this again, and I don't feel real comfortable with what may be in our future as we go through whichever decision is made. I would have preferred to have a written statement well thought out ahead of time, but there seems to be individuals that want to know where various members of council feel. And I certainly will follow up with a better thought out presentation. However, I'd like to say this. If there was ever any place that the flag of the Confederacy should be allowed to fly, it's the last capital of the Confederacy. And I understand there's a motion in place now that says that this flag, which is truly about Southern pride and heritage and has very little to do with the Civil War, and certainly there were a small minority of Americans that took the symbol and used it in the worst kind of way. I agree that has happened. There are hate groups of all types in this country. They should be shamed. But the Confederate flag never was intended to be a hate flag. It was hijacked by some hateful people. If you want to talk about slavery, and I'll be just briefly, I'd like to say I would have preferred to have prepared something. In the book of Genesis, 2000 BC is the first reference I've seen of slavery. It thrived throughout history for all types of people to be slaves. I'm certainly not proud that our country relied so heavily on slaves during its early years. There were slaves in the North, there were slaves in the South, there were slaves, black slaves, there were white slaves. I hate that we have to take on something so divisive, and either way, it's going to be probably a black eye for our city. I have heard from numerous people who agree with me that if an appropriate offer was made, that the museum should be in a museum board that is not under city control. And I would certainly hope that we would still consider that should an offer be made. Finally, I don't want anybody to think I'm racist. Those who know me know I'm not. I go out of my way to open doors at grocery stores and parking lots for any lady who has her hands full. I try to be the nicest person I can be, to be a Christian to all people I meet on the street. And I'm terribly saddened that this debate has had to happen and is going to continue to go forward. And from the deepest part of my heart, I do not believe that the flag should be removed from the last capital of the Confederacy. And I respect every member of council for his own opinion. But you wanted to know opinions? There's mine. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Mr. Vogler?
I have just one thing I want to talk about tonight. I think all of us in our lifetimes have had that teacher or teachers that have impacted us beyond our time in the classroom, and I just wanted to take a moment to talk about one tonight. Mrs. Wanda Newcomb was an extraordinary lady, and some of you here tonight may have known her. And her funeral was yesterday. She passed away over the weekend, and I was there as hundreds of other people were. And for those who don't know, I just want to take a moment to tell you a little bit about her. She was a teacher at Stony Mill Elementary for 38 years, and while I was a student there, she took a special interest in me because of a common love we shared. We were both Elvis Presley fans. I was in the 3rd grade when I first did my Elvis performance at the school talent show, and again the next year when she was my teacher. My 5th grade year, I decided not to do it again, and although she wasn't my teacher anymore, she made a point to find me in the hallways or in the cafeteria and really asked me if I would just do it one more time before I went off to middle school. And finally I relented, and I can still now picture her in the audience clapping and smiling and just enjoying herself. It's been 20 years since then, but I can honestly say that I wouldn't be where I am in life today without the guidance that Mrs. Newcomb gave to me in those formative years. Teaching wasn't just a job for her, it was a passion, and that was obvious to anyone who ever had her as a teacher. She was a tremendous lady. After I'd been elected to council, we ran into each other one day, and she had said, how proud she was of me that I had, done this and doing well, and she was really proud of me. And I could say that, honestly, I'm proud to have known her, and I think I can quite honestly say that anyone who ever knew her could say the same. I just want to say that I continue to think about her family and her friends, and that I'll miss her greatly. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Mayor Saunders?
I'd like to thank everyone for coming out to petition your government. That's what we're here for, to let your views be known and your concerns heard. We thank you for that. Also, to City Council members, I really appreciate all of you, and thank you for what you do every day. Each of the 9 of us, each person was elected individually, okay, for the reason the voters chose to elect us. We make tough decisions all the time, and I believe we make them in the best interest of our city. We have more tough decisions to make, and I ask that we continue to make them in the best interest of our city. There are issues in our community that we are divided, but both sides of the issue are still good people, great people. And I love the people on both sides of the issue. But we must make the tough decision, and we make that decision individually, and it's settled collectively from our individual decision. So I thank everyone for expressing your views. And whether we agree or not, I still love you, I still respect you. Danville is a great city. Yes, we can be better. And I do believe that we will be even greater. Thank you very much. Meeting adjourned.